Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to talk about how I'm excited about Google I/O. Okay, so the weather today in England is terrible, at least in the south of England, in Oxfordshire where I am. Right? The reason my hair is all wet is because I've been all over the place. I had a client meeting this morning. In fact, I've had like several client meetings this week and I've been driving all over the place. But this morning, the pouring rain, I find the office. Right now I was in such a rush because I was late that I parked the car like, around the corner, and then I quickly go into the office because I'm already late. So I go in there and I'm, have the meeting. Everything goes fine. I apologize for being late and everything. And then when it comes time to leave, I walk out and completely forgot where I parked my car. So I walked off like in the wrong direction. So like, I think instead of taking a right when I'm walking out the door of the offices, I took a left and then walked all over the place in the rain, pouring rain, trying to find my stupid car, right? And the embarrassing bit is when you have to walk back in front of that office window and it's like, 10 minutes later, like, man, I don't even know where, park. So pretending that you just went for a stroll in the rain and everything. Anyway, so I was soaking wet, that's why, but my hair's still wet, went home and changed. Anyway, not important, but kind of a funny story. This kind of stuff happens. So today's a big day because it's Google I/O Day. So May 17th. So in a few hours time, there's going to be the big keynote speech for Google I/O, which is always fun to watch. I mean, I love watching it every year. Not so much the Android Auto parts, right? They always have the Android Auto OS and everything like that, which is, it's really interesting, but I've never actually seen it in work. In fact, if anybody out there is a developer that works on apps for Android Auto, let us know what that's like. So I always wondered, like, do you have to have an actual physical car or several cars for testing, or is everything done through the simulator, right, or the emulator, right? So anyway, so my big hope for the Google I/O though, for the announcements, and I know that some of this stuff's already dripped out already, but what I really want to have is like to be able to scan for life forms, like on Star Trek, like, okay, this building has 6 life forms inside, something like that, or like if somebody gets hit by a car and you're the first one on the scene, or you run up to the scene and you just scan them and go, I'm sorry, this man is dead, right? And then it'll be like, but he's breathing, he's getting up. And you'll be like, oh, I must need to reboot this thing or whatever. Because Android's not the most reliable at times. How many times you had to reboot your phone because something stopped working? Anyway, so the Google I/O, the thing that it always reminds me of is the early days of web. And I know I talk about the early days of web all the time, because I'm old, right? So, back, I can remember every time like Internet Explorer would come out with a new version, and it was like once every, I don't remember if it was once every year or once every 2 years. Back then, release cycles were much longer, right? And I can remember when IE5, Internet Explorer 5 came out, and they announced all these new things that you could do with them, like HTML applications, HTA files, HTML plus time, all these other new types of things and everything. And we would get really excited about them as developers, like we'd read all the MSDN and all the new stuff that you could do, but because the investment bank I was working at the time, we still had users using Netscape. So we had Internet Explorer, Netscape. So we would get excited about these new things, but we knew we probably couldn't use them because we had half the users using something else. And even in organizations that I worked at that were all Internet Explorers, which, in a corporate environment that used to be like everybody, you still would have, it would take ages for like a new version of a browser to be rolled out anyway. So you knew that as cool as these new features were, you couldn't really use them. In fact, I remember writing an article, a blog post years ago saying, this was before Chrome, before Firefox even became big. It was after Netscape and everything. And I got a new job in a corporate environment, and took on a new contract, and everybody was just Internet Explorer. So they were using ActiveX components in the client. They were using VB script in the client instead of JavaScript and stuff like that. So they were really using all of Internet Explorer, and I was saying, and they could do much cooler things with it because they didn't have to make it cross-platform. I was kind of jealous about that, so I wrote this blog post saying how, now it's time to just focus on Internet Explorer because Netscape is dead. And I tell you what, I got loads of like nasty comments on that blog post. This was been 2003, 2004, something like that. It was, and shows how much I know because, God, I would never use Internet Explorer now, unless I have to. There was this big, over the weekend, it seems like I'm switching topics here, but they're kind of related. Over the weekend, there was this big thing with ransomware, like the NHS here in England a lot of the services had to shut down because this ransomware attack. And it was a vulnerability on Windows. And the problem was that even though Windows had released, you know, security patches for it, you know, quite a while ago, I think at least months ago, but the IT departments weren't able to upgrade those, right? And a lot of, you know, and some people were saying, you know, it's a global attack and everything like that, but, you know, Microsoft is like, well, release a security patch and your security departments didn't really, you know, upgrade enough. And one of the reasons for that has to do with, you know, one of the last places I worked with, I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4 years ago, they were still using Internet Explorer 8, and that had been out for like 10 years already. And they'd only just recently moved up from Internet Explorer, like a couple years before, from IE6 to IE8. So the browsers they were using were really, really old. And the reason they were stuck on those really old versions of the browser was because they had systems that were written that just used Internet Explorer functionality that was no longer supported. So they were using ActiveX components in the client, in the HTML. They were using you know, VB script in the client, which was no longer supported in later versions of IE, right? And they couldn't use Chrome if they wanted to. And to be honest with you, I worked on some of those systems. So, you know, you'd have, it wasn't so much the security people's fault. The security people wanted to roll out all the latest patches as they came, but because we had all these old legacy systems written in a certain way for only one platform, they couldn't do that without testing everything in the organization in this big corporate environment. So coming back to Google I/O, right? It's kind of the same thing where it's very easy to get excited about new things that come out for that one single platform, but a lot of times it takes a while for that to actually filter through, right? So like let's say the new functionality comes out where you can scan for life forms. Right? It might only be available in the latest hardware, or it might be only available in the latest operating system, Android O. And the problem is, whereas if you have a Nexus like I do, or like a Google phone, or if you rooted it or whatever, then you can install the latest operating systems, but most of your users won't. This is one thing I find with iPhone and Android being very different is with iPhone, when they come up with a new version, most of their users seem to be upgrading every so often because you know, even though like an iPhone 3G might not have it, but you don't have that many people out there with it anymore, and it takes a while for everybody to you know, build up. Like when I was using a Samsung phone, when I had a Samsung S3, right, we wanted the latest version of Android, but of course it took them ages to do it because they had to test everything. It was the same as having your own personal IT security department that slowed everything down. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling around here a little bit. Tonight, I'm really excited to see what's going on. You know, see some of the new features, some of the stuff that we could put in. We probably won't implement a lot of them because a lot of our stuff is for cross-platform. If a client comes to us, more often than not, they don't want to just have just Android, but we might put out some stuff on our own that's just Android because it's always good to be, you know, to capitalize on those first people who are really interested in trying those new apps and everything. So anyway, I'll be watching that tonight. Rambling on a little bit here, you know, it's really exciting times, and anyway, that's it for today. Oh yeah, and if you're an Android auto developer, let us know what that's like. I'd be really interested to talk to you about, you know, how do you test things, how do you do stuff like that, because I have not seen it really in practice yet. So anyway, that's it for today. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.